Football Manager 2026 is rapidly approaching, and it's time to decide which team are you going to manage. So I've decided to come up with some safe ideas. To be exact, 100 safe ideas. Rebuilds from around the world, nations to build, challenges to complete, empires to build. Your next save is in this video, and so it's time to dive in. I decided to separate the saves into a few categories, and we're starting off with rebuilds in the top 7 leagues. Our adventure begins in England with Crystal Palace, a team on the rise. They won their first ever major trophy this year, the FA Cup, as well as the Community Shield. The Eagles are also going to play in Europe for the first time, and it's time to continue this positive momentum. Maybe you can win them the Premier League. Or you can rebuild a club that fell from glory, and quite massively. Of course, I'm talking about Manchester United. Everything was already said about them, so I'll just make a challenge for you. Just make a video about the rebuild and post it on YouTube. Now we're moving over to Spain. And here I've got Valencia, who have not seen European football since 2020, and Real Sociedad, who missed out on Europe for the first time since 2020. In Germany, we have two clubs that sacked their coaches very early into the season. Bayer Leverkusen, who sacked Erik ten Hag only 2 games in, and Borussia Mönchengladbach, who sacked Gerardo Seoane just a match later. Moving to Italy, I chose Lecce, who are located the most southward in mainland Italy, and Bologna, who played in the Champions League and won the Italian Cup last season. Wait, what is the symbol on the top right? There are 3 symbols that will appear throughout this video next to a number, so watch this part of the screen if there's a special challenge involved. The dollar symbol stands for a Moneyball save. In short, Moneyball is a type of a save where you scout without looking at the attributes. You're analyzing the pure on-pitch data instead. I'll just attach a tutorial made by Kempy11 because he's the one who makes more of those Moneyball saves a bit more often. There's also an Academic Cup, which is a symbol for a Youth Academy challenge. This is a bit more simple. You are only allowed to use players who appeared in your yearly youth intake. And a Monitor stands for a save that might require an editor file, which may not be available on day 1. There's also this button. It says subscribe, which if you click, you will subscribe to this channel. See what I did there? Moving to France, I've decided to go with newly promoted Paris FC, which is quite the obvious build the city rival quite literally next door. Or RC Strasbourg, who are on the rise since the takeover by Blueco. Blueco also owns Chelsea, and you can use this affiliate link to your advantage. Heading to Portugal, I chose Santa Clara, located in the stunning Azores Islands. Santa Clara, despite getting a chance twice in the Conference League qualifiers, have not made it to the group or league stage. Can you take charge of them and give them a much needed breakthrough? And if you would prefer to go to Lisbon instead, you can take charge of Sporting Club de Portugal, but only if you're going to take on the Youth Academy Challenge. The same challenge applies if you want to take over Ajax in the Netherlands and use their elite academy. Or you can go to Sparta Rotterdam to build a new top-level city rival for Feyenoord, or to go ahead Eagles in order to build up on their positive momentum following the Dutch Cup win. But maybe you don't want to manage in the top tier. Well, it's time to go to the lower leagues inside the top 7 nations. Starting with Plymouth Argyle, who were rock bottom in last season's championship. Another side is Morecambe, who play in the National League, but they have a bit more of a story behind them, because they almost disappeared from football a week before the league started. Thankfully, Punjab Warriors and Jason Whittingham agreed on the former taking over, and Morecambe could finally prepare for the National League season. In Spain, I chose Granada, who just missed out on the promotion playoffs in the most recent season. And in Italy, I went with a previously established Serie A team, Sampdoria. They almost went bankrupt in 2023, but thankfully, a takeover from Andrea Radrizzani prevented it. But problems didn't stop here. In the most recent season, Sampdoria only avoided the drop to Serie C thanks to Brescia folding entirely and winning the relegation playout against Salernitana. The alternative is AC Monza, most recently relegated to Serie B and sold to American investors by the Berlusconi family. Moving to France, I chose another fallen sort of a giant, Montpellier, unlikely winners of Ligue 1 in 2012. However, they got relegated in the most recent season and are looking for someone who can build them back up to glory. I also decided to include CS Marítimo, located in Madeira and playing in Portugal's 2nd division, as well as Vitesse in the Netherlands. while Sampdoria is falling down. Vitesse have just risen from quite literal ashes. Before the start of the season in the second Dutch league, Vitesse were denied license after multiple years of administration-related problems. However, on September 3rd, Vitesse finally won the appeal and can play football again, even though they started late and with a 12 points deduction. I know many of you will look for a brand new challenge, a challenge in a smaller European league, a chance to discover new grounds and places. This is the rest of Europe category, and we're starting in Austria with Lask Linz. Lask was playing in Europe on a regular basis, even reaching the round of 16 of the Europa League in 2019. But in the most recent season, Lask finished 35th out of 36 teams in the Conference League stage and did not make it to the championship group in the league. Genk, a Belgian team, is a regular participant in Europe, known for its great academy and the malleable approach, which you can utilize to become Belgium's most dominant side. Arda Karzali from Bulgaria qualified for the Conference League football for the second time ever and almost reached the league stage. They only narrowly lost out to Raków Częstochowa of Poland. But maybe you can carry them to the league stage, or maybe go even further. Dinamo Zagreb most recently lost the league title on the final match day to Rijeka, but most of the time they're just walking it. So it's time to build a new rival in the Croatian capital. Lokomotiva Zagreb are the chosen ones. Brno is the second biggest city in Czechia, but they don't even have a team in the top flight. Zbrojovka Brno are in the second division, and the goal is to bring them to the first division and win it. Or carry on the positive momentum in Sigma Olomouc, who won the most recent Czech Cup and got to their first ever European group or league stage in the 21st century, the Conference League to be exact. In Denmark, I'll propose the country's two biggest clubs, FC Copenhagen with a Youth Academy Challenge and FC Midtjylland, but you have to use the Moneyball method. Koe Klaksvik once reached the Conference League stage in 2023, and they decided to become massive in Europe again this year. They won over Sejnajoki and Radnički in 1923 and almost got past Nieman Grodno in the third qualifying round of the Conference League, being knocked out on penalties. HJK Helsinki are considered the best club in Finland, but they missed out on the title last year. So, the quick task is to win it back. If you want to manage in Gibraltar, you can take charge of Bruno's Magpies, the team that was founded in a bar and now are regularly qualifying for Europe. However, they only won one aggregate ever, against Derry City in 2024. So maybe it's time to win them the first league title and achieve something more in Europe. Aris Saloniki can be considered the 5th best team in Greece, but they don't have much to prove for it, with the last league title being won in 1946. Another sleeping giant is Debreceni VSC, from the second biggest city in Hungary, who won the last league title in 2014 and were nowhere near the title fight since, even getting relegated in 2020. Dundalk, who almost made it to the Champions League group stage in 2016, have not won the Irish League title since 2019 and now are not even a part of the Irish top flight. Unlike Kairat Almaty, the team located in the east of Kazakhstan, 300 kilometers away from China. They're also the most recent champions, and speaking of champions, they wrote history by making it to the league stage of the Champions League this year. There's also BFC Daugavpils, from Latvia's second biggest city, and Tromsø IL from Norway, who are located even further up north than Bodo Glimt. In Poland, I have 3 save ideas for you. Widzew Łódź, who have been taken over by a billionaire Robert Dobrzycki and have an ambition to bring back their golden age. I made a whole video about the new owners and transfer madness of the Ekstraklasa, it's on the top right. Korona Kielce, also right after a takeover from Łukasz Maciejczyk, and also a club where you can try a Moneyball save. And if you want to start from the second division, you can take charge of Śląsk Wrocław, who went down after almost winning the league a season before. In Romania, I chose Sepsi OSK, a club from the town of Startu Gorgei, with Hungarians speak a majority population there, and also the club that was relegated in the most recent season. For Scotland, I chose Arbroath. I had an idea to play a short save with them, but it never became a reality, so I'm passing a rebuild of them to you. On your screen right now, you have every single Serbian league winner from outside its capital, Belgrade. Notice how there are precisely no teams here? You may as well not change that with Partizan Belgrade, where you try to overthrow Crvena Zvezda's dominance only using the players from the academy, or change that with Vojvodina Novi Sad, who play in Serbia's second biggest city. For Turkey, I decided to choose 2 teams from outside the Big Four. One of them is Kocaelispor. The team from Izmit completed their decade rise back from the amateur leagues all the way to the top flight. This happened because of huge financial issues in the first place, which resulted in a fall from the Turkish top flight to amateur leagues between 2009 and 2014. Can you establish them in the top flight, or will you take charge of another club that's already there, Samsunspor? Last season, they achieved their biggest success, the 3rd place in the league, and this year, they are taking part in their first ever European league stage, the Conference League stage to be exact. And last but not least in this category, Ruk Lviv from Ukraine, because I think the city of Lviv has the biggest chance of going ahead of Dynamo Kiev and Shakhtar Donetsk and winning the league title. But maybe you want to explore a place outside of Europe? Although I must admit, I don't know much about most of those places, so it will be pretty quick. I'll just throw you to the other side of the world, to New Zealand, to play in the Australian League with a brand new team, Auckland FC. If New Zealand doesn't convince you, how about going to Newell's Old Boys, Lionel Messi's first ever club? Or one of the two Brazilian clubs I thought about, Grêmio and Bahia, who both won 2 league titles, only problem being, they won all of them in the 20th century. Chengdu Rongcheng from China were established in 2018 and already made their way up from the 4th to the 1st Chinese division in just 4 seasons. But now, they need someone to take them to the top, after their best ever 3rd place finish. Deportivo Cali in Colombia is where you can make a youth academy challenge. There are some speculations about more African leagues being added to the base game, mainly run by the sorted out SI forum. One of them is Egypt, and for a club to manage, I chose newly promoted Karaba Ismaila SC. In Japan, I went with Sagan Tosu in the 2nd tier, maybe because Victor Ibarbo, a FIFA Ultimate Team legend, played there, but in reality, I chose them randomly. Just like Alga Bishkek, who are a fallen giant in Kyrgyzstan. For the Moroccan league, I went with newly promoted KAC Marrakesh. I also decided to include 2 teams from Saudi Arabia, Al Khalay, who have the smallest number of foreigners in the league, and Al Nassr. Your only challenge in Al Nassr is to make sure Cristiano Ronaldo completes his hunt for 1000 career goals before he retires. Also, do you think he can achieve this in real life? I think he can, but I want to know your opinion in the comments down below. For South Africa, I went with Orlando Pirates, mainly because they haven't won a title since 2012, and Sekhukhune United. They were established in 2020, and in the 5 years of their existence, already finished 4th twice, so maybe you can take them to the league title. For the Major League Soccer, I went with New York Red Bulls, who never won the MLS Cup and in 2024 lost the final to LA Galaxy, who are my other safe idea from the US, with a goal of winning their first CONCACAF Champions Cup since the year 2000. I'll admit, I know next to nothing about the women's game, but I heard it makes its debut in Football Manager 2026, so I have to include some propositions. I start this list with the London City Lionesses, the only club in the Women's Premier League that is fully independent, at least by Wikipedia's definition. The other club I chose is Crystal Palace, mainly because I think we're getting 2 tiers of the English women's game, and the Eagles were relegated in the most recent season. For the German team, I chose FC Köln, who somehow keep avoiding relegation every year from the Bundesliga, and for Italy, I went with Napoli, because in the men's game, Napoli's Italy's most recent champion is a yo-yo club between the first 2 tiers at best. In Spain, I went with Athletic Bilbao. Try doing the Bilbao challenge, but in women's football. For the French league, I chose none. There is quite literally nothing I found interesting, so I picked them at random. And outside of Europe, I chose Chicago Stars from the US, mainly because I like their logo, and Central Coast Mariners of Australia, only because they have no foreign players. And you may also try building a nation. It won't be as comprehensive as in the men's game, but you can still try climbing to the top of the European coefficient rankings. The 2 nations you can do it with are Sweden and Denmark, and you can choose any club you'd like. Speaking of Build a Nation, there are some nations to build in the men's game as well. Build a Nation is, to put it simply, a type of a save where you don't just build a club, but also a league and the nation as a whole. The most common method is called a loan farm. You basically sign a ton of players from around the world for the sole purpose of loaning them out to other clubs in the league. And now, I'm going to list the 10 nations I chose. Starting off with Sweden again, a country that reached the World Cup quarterfinal as recently as in 2018. For the club of your choice, you can take charge of one of the giants of the past, Örgryte or Osters, who both play in the 2nd division. Next up is my favorite place to find reliable players, Slovenia. This is where I keep getting great footballers for my saves, whether the real ones or newgens of the future. So maybe it's time to utilize that talent in its birthplace. My choice for a club would be Domžale, who won back-to-back titles in 2007 and 8, but cannot even get close to doing so again since. Another place I take plenty of wonder kids from is Slovakia. I personally find it to be an underrated league with plenty of talent. And now you can also give it a go with Dukla Bańska Bystrica, a club from what's sometimes called a heart and a bit of a capital of Slovakia. Also, did you know that Bratislava was the capital of Hungary from 1536 to 1784? The more you know. Bańska Bystrica want to have some bragging rights, but I'm afraid you can't do that from the 2nd division, to which they got relegated in the most recent season. I already mentioned some Danish clubs in this video, but there's one more. Aalborg BK in Denmark's second division will be your place to rebuild that historically always decent nation to a footballing powerhouse. This nation already has the resources and some good results in Europe, so it's time to build up on it. Croatia also comes back, in the form of yet another team from Zagreb, and Dugopolia to be exact. Croatia is known for creating some great players, such as Luka Modric, Josip Šutalo or Martin Baturina, the key elements of the current national team. But in Europe's club competitions, only Dinamo Zagreb guarantees results, so it's time to change that with Dugopolia. In case you don't want to build an already decent nation and want to start from scratch, you can either take charge of Armenia, whose Noah Yerevan made it to the Conference League for the second time in a row, or Lithuania, who are rumored to be added as a default league in Football Manager 2026, at least according to the sorted out SI forum. And if you want to build a nation outside of Europe, it's time to go with India. The second biggest nation in the world does not have a league or national team that could show that, and it's time to build it. For the club choice, I chose Kerala Blasters, because Fiago. I'm also including Indonesia, because of Bali, or Bali United to be exact, who play in its top flight and are a perfect place to build a footballing powerhouse in a wonderful island. And for North America, I went with Canada. The Canadian League is only going through its 7th season, and next year there is a chance for more teams to join. I don't know if they will feature in FM26, but it's definitely a good reason to try and make Canada a footballing powerhouse. And now, it's time for some challenges. Starting off with the Glory Hunter Women's Game Edition. Basically, win Europe's top 5 leagues and the Women's Champions League, all in 20 seasons. We've sorted out SI, claiming there will be more African leagues. It's also time for the African Glory Hunter Challenge. Win the leagues of Algeria, Egypt, Morocco and South Africa, as well as the African Champions League, all in 15 seasons. And why not also add the Asian Glory Hunter Challenge, win the leagues of the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, China, South Korea and Japan, as well as the Champions League in 20 seasons. And the South American Glory Hunter Challenge, win all available leagues in South America, as well as Copa Libertadores in 20 seasons. I also came up with the ideas for a Football Manager speedrun. Try winning the Italian Serie A from Serie C in 10 seasons, or the Bundesliga from the Dritte Liga in 10 seasons, or the Ligue 1 from Championat National in 10 seasons, or the La Liga from Segunda Federación, the 4th tier, also in 10 seasons. And of course there's the Vaduz Challenge, which simply put is taking charge of FC Vaduz, a club from Liechtenstein in the Swiss League. However, it's not that easy. You don't get to qualify for Europe from the Swiss League, but from the Liechtenstein Cup instead, which only allows you to qualify for the first 2 qualifying rounds of the Conference League. The only way of winning the Champions League is by winning the Conference League and the Europa League in 2 consecutive seasons first. The Director of Football Save is a save where you don't take charge of the tactics, training or media responsibilities. Your only task is to build the squad and manage the transfers. This model often comes together with a football empire concept, where you take charge of multiple clubs with a flagship club in front. I came up with 5 empire ideas. First is an empire of Central European capitals. This is where you take charge of 3 clubs, one from Budapest, the capital of Hungary, one from Bratislava, the capital of Slovakia, and your flagship club, Austria or Rapid Vienna, from the capital of Austria. The second empire is an Adriatic empire, where you take charge of clubs located by the Adriatic Sea. My propositions are SC Koper in Slovenia, Hajduk Split in Croatia, and your flagship club, Venezia from Italy. There is also a Baltic Empire, where you take charge of clubs from countries located by the Baltic Sea. My pick of teams would be Auda from Latvia, Banga Gargždai from Lithuania, IFK Mariehamn in Finland, and my flagship club would be AIK Solna from Sweden. Optionally, you can also add clubs from Denmark, Poland and Germany. For all the Hungarians watching this video, I have an idea right for you. Take charge of clubs representing the Hungarian communities outside of Hungary. The lineup of that could be NS Mura of Slovenia, TSC Bačka Topola of Serbia, CFR Cluj of Romania, Dunajska Streda or Komarno of Slovakia, and any Hungarian club of your choice, being a leading club. And my final save idea of this video is a Silesian Empire, where you take charge of the clubs in the Silesian region. Your lineup will include MŠK Žilina in Slovakia, which I know is not in Silesia, but it's close to it and I needed a third country, and one of the whole host of clubs from both Czechia and Poland. So, what is your next Football Manager save? Let me know in the comments down below. And also, if you found an interesting save idea during this video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, I'll be very grateful for that. For those watching until the very end, I have the save idea number 101, the Ultimate Glory Hunter Challenge. Just try to win every single European league. I attempted to take on it, and I must admit I overestimated my chances. But at least it was enjoyable. The full movie from my attempt is available on your screen right now.